Greetings, chess friends. We are back today with another absolute gem of a chess game from the first world champion, William Steinitz. Starts out with e4. Now, his opponent, e5, was the response. Kurt van Bardeleben, uh, evidently some German nobility, and led quite an interesting life, which I won't elaborate too much on. But I read the Wikipedia, and I always find those things pretty interesting. Anyway, this opening is also pretty interesting. C3, a good move here. At this time, the game was played in 1895. So, pretty impressive. Knight f6, d4, modern looking stuff here. Capture, capture. I believe e5 is also a move on this type of position, but who's counting? Here, bishop b4 check, knight c3, all just excellent chess. And really here, I think black needs to just capture this pawn. Notice the knight is pinned, and this knight takes pawn is safe. Still an exciting game. Instead, he plays d5. Who can fault them some 130 years ago for mixing up their prep? But d5 is a thematic move, but not quite the best. E takes d5, knight takes d5, and Steinitz just castles. Having a good sense of the initiative. Remember, this is quite a bit after the time of Morphy, and the players had improved. Actually, Steinitz had just lost his world championship to Lasker, but the overall play, attack, defense, understanding, openings, everything is much better than the days of Morphy. So the feel for the initiative, giving up material, that was already kind of understood to be chess fact, basically. No longer theory, but that's just how you play. Bishop e6, bishop g5, developing all of the pieces. Gets a question mark, but I would say a very natural move. Bishop e7, bishop takes, 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 takes. Wow, what a boring game. What are you doing showing us this game, Chris, which has no action and all the pieces were traded? Let's hold that thought just one moment, because here, rook e1, which, although it's a natural move, is very pesky. For example, black can no longer castle either direction because the knight can just be taken. How does black untangle? By the way, stopping your opponent from castling is a massive advantage in chess. So black's king is caught in the center here, caught in the crossfire, so to speak, and he starts to make some moves which, although good, do eventually cause some dilemma. Here, f6, queen e2. Not only threatening checkmate, hello, but when you defend this, queen d7, he does, you still cannot castle because the knight is attacked twice. And really, look at the power of these rooks. In the corner, they are disconnected and very clumsy. Rook a c1, which gets a question mark, but I would say still a very natural move. Compare them to the white rooks, which are very well placed. The two black rooks are dormant, and white is just better. The next move, just sensational. And again, showing that Steinitz had real understanding, positional and tactical. D5. A really nice move. The knight cannot take it. It's pinned. The queen cannot take. Queen takes knight would be checkmate. So the only option then, if you don't want to ignore this, which I wouldn't recommend either, but is to capture that center pawn. And white, Steinitz, the former world champion, just casually slides the knight into d4. One thing I'll mention is back here, essentially it's the only piece, the knight, which needs some improvement. And you could think of a couple other moves, for example, with this rook, but the knight just doesn't have a good forward move. So d5 and knight d4. Now this knight might be the best piece we have. It's just wonderfully placed, central, and if you don't think it's the best piece we have, it sure is now. Is all that worth one pawn? We had to pay one pawn to get our knight well into the game on a great square near their king, threatening moves like this. A good price to pay, one pawn. Rook c8, challenging the rook on the c-file. Queen g4. Notice that knight still protected, and now queen takes g7, and followed by queen f8 checkmate, g6. And the next series of moves is not only baffling to a degree, but also some of the most amazing in the history of chess. This game really stands out as a gem in the catalog of Steinitz, and I would recommend you even go a little slower, watch the video one more time perhaps and just go nice and slow because this next series of moves truly remarkable. It's all based on the fact that the queen is staring at this queen. Black's queen is unguarded. Let's start with that. Knight g5 is check, but the point is, again, the queen takes the black queen. So you cannot just, for example, take the knight. Queen takes queen. Black is lost. So he plays king e8. That guards the queen. What else could you have done? And here start the haymakers that the German master could not handle. Rook takes e7. Absolutely stunning move. This is based on the fact that if queen takes rook is check. Rook takes rook. Queen takes rook is check. And the only legal move is to block where we can at least trade queens. There's a couple other moves. Queen e6 looks pretty good as well, but at least trading queens. And just move your knight. Don't get trapped in here. I would just play maybe a move like check and hop out back to d4. White is clearly winning knight 4 pawn. Let's jump back to the game. Rook takes, so you can't really take this with the queen. Again, all of that we just saw came from this rook takes rook. Well, how about king takes, the only other sensible move? And if you did this one, rook e1, and if this, knight e6, notice you cannot escape without giving your queen. You have to walk back into the e file, and knight c5, that is check, and we're just taking your queen on the next move. So wait a minute. So rook takes, what are we supposed to do? And black actually comes up with a pretty shocking move, king f8, the best move. Wait a minute, Chris, can't we just take their queen in two different ways? Sure, checkmate. Rook can block, but checkmate on the next move. Wait 1 second. So king f8, maybe black had foreseen this, that rook takes rook is checkmate, but Steinitz continues with his legendary romp along the 7th rank, rook f7. Almost floating in midair, this rook with seemingly no protection. Again, if you take this, the point, though, is that rook takes rook comes with check. That's critical. If it wasn't a check, again, then black is threatening us first. But here, check. King g8, that's what was played in the game. Rook g7. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Rook went to e7, to f7, now to g7. Brilliancy. Let's look at these options. If king takes, that one's easy enough. We can take their queen with check. Very close to mate. Queen takes, again, the point, as we've seen now the third time, that rook takes rook and queen takes is just going to exchange all the pieces. And we're going to be up 1 knight. That's easy enough to convert. And in the game, he played king h8, and by now you may be able to guess rook takes h7. Absolutely stunning. Here black resigned. And a funny anecdote, I have a note here that says black resigned at this point. As Steinitz demonstrated immediately afterward, there is mate in 10 moves, which can only be averted by a ruinous loss of material. So if you do want to see that, I'll show it right now. He was showing after the game that you can play rook g7. Now that the pawn is gone, it was important to take that pawn. Now that it's gone, though, queen h4, king takes rook, queen check, 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 check again, knight f7, and then checkmate, queen d6. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All forcing moves. Mate in 10 casually. I think this was around the time they used to announce checkmates. Should we bring that back maybe? Announcing mate in 10. But this game is one of a kind. Rook takes e7, rook f7. It really is the most amazing probably. Or rook g7. Just stunning. You just don't see the tactics working out. All of it based on the queen hanging and the rook hanging. Computer engines 130 moves later give it all perfect. In fact, this entire game was played at a 94.3% chess.com analysis. So, wow, over 94%, pretty impressive for those old timers. And again, if you're wondering what do I do tomorrow to get better at chess or today, look at the games of the old masters. What are you doing looking at Geary versus Wesley and Naka versus Rapport? These games are beyond the average chess player, myself included. I sometimes have no clue what's going on in these top level games. It's just engine versus engine memorization. So look at the old games. You will understand them easier. There are still brilliancies, and I just marvel at how good those players got without the engines that we take for granted today. So, hope you enjoyed this one, an absolute classic from chess history. I'm going to keep trying to dig up other games. Just want to mention, I'm sure that many players out there have already shown this game, whether it be some videos or books or otherwise. Of course, very famous game, but I'm not adding anything new, just my spin and opinion, and I hope you like it. Thank you all again for watching, and you have a great day.